The same 55-minute window that lets a British submarine erase Moscow as a functioning command centre also exists in the sky, and it starts with the Royal Air Force. That's the headline, the thumbnail, the promise, and the warning. Now, let's show you how the clock starts, what it hits, and why the Kremlin would rather argue about anything else. 55 minutes. That's a sitcom and a badly boiled pasta. It's also the time between a British order and a Russian war machine realizing its eyes, ears, and brain just aren't there anymore. People hear "destroy Russia" and imagine mushroom clouds. Wrong film. This story is about deleting the systems that run a war. The radar nets that see, the data links that coordinate, the fuel that flows, and the officers who turn chaos into orders. Take those away and the rest becomes museum pieces. Fast. First, where does this 55 minutes idea even come from? In the old telling, the stopwatch belonged to Britain's sea-based deterrent. Silent steel in dark water, an arithmetic of range, warning time, and political resolve. But deterrence is a duet, and the RAF is the partner that turns a crisis into a countdown. In modern war, you don't win by flattening cities, you win by collapsing networks. Russia's doctrine threatens escalation to force concessions. Britain's answer is minimum credible nuclear deterrence at sea and maximum credible conventional punishment in the air. That doesn't mean vague threats, it means very concrete ones. Your command posts, your sector operations centres, your long-range surveillance radars, your high-capacity fuel farms, your hardened fibre hubs, and your mobile headquarters are targetable, trackable, and fragile when the right effects arrive in the right order. The hour matters because the opening hour decides whether an aggressor feels in control or looks for an exit. Second, what can the RAF actually put in the air? Start with Typhoon, the workhorse with razors on its pylons. On Typhoon lives the playbook. Meteor for beyond visual range air dominance, the long stick that punishes anything brave or unlucky enough to light a radar. ASRAM for the knife fight, high off-bore sight and brutally agile. Paveway 4 for precision on coordinates, even when the weather is very British. Brimstone for armour that needs to stop moving right now. And Storm Shadow when something 200 plus kilometers away needs to quietly stop existing. F-35B brings stealth and fused sensors for opening night. It slips past radars, tags the high-value nodes, and either strikes or passes targeting data to everyone else. Around them move the enablers. Voyager tankers turn minutes on station into hours. Rivet Joint vacuums up Russian emissions and tells you which eye to poke next. Shadow R and other ISR platforms stalk tactical targets and mobile commanders who thought camouflage was a plan. Poseidon keeps the northern seas honest so no one gets clever with submarines near tanker tracks. And E7 Wedgetail ties the whole picture together. An airborne conductor that can track swarms and whisper to fighters without breaking a sweat. Add cyber and electronic attack teams on the ground and you get a kill web. Finders, fixers, finishers, and jammers, wired for speed. Quick clarity check before the countdown. When this video says destroy Russia in 55 minutes, it does not mean craters and ash. It means deleting the capacity to command, coordinate, and resupply a large-scale offensive. War runs on information, electricity, fuel, and orders. Collapse those and you don't fight a superpower. You unplug it. What does a 55-minute kill chain actually look like? Let's walk the clock. Minute 0. Alert orders flow. RAF squadrons aren't scrambling for glory. They're executing a well-rehearsed appointment. Voyagers spool up and slide into pre-planned refuel tracks north of Scotland and over the North Sea. F-35Bs ride the gas line low and quiet. Typhoons push into launch baskets that keep them outside the worst of Russia's long-range surface-to-air missiles. ISR crews are already busy, because if you want a fast opening hour, you do the homework. If you're still watching, by the way, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. The detailed, patient ones who don't just want explosions, you want consequences. So consider subscribing now so you don't miss the next breakdown. Let's get back to how this changes the game. Minute 5. Rivet Joint reports a familiar hum in the ether. Long-range search radars in the Barents and Baltic belts. Sector command posts taking their temperature. Analysts cross-plot emissions against recent movements and known fixed sites. Shadow R pins a mobile brigade headquarters that's been playing hide-and-seek. Jammers start their work, not to win the war with noise, but to make the Russian picture untrustworthy. A commander who doesn't trust his screen is a commander about to be late. Minute 12. The first Storm Shadows leave British wings and hug the terrain. Each missile carries its own map, its own plan, and a warhead that doesn't just explode, it enters, navigates, and finishes. The weapons aren't glamorous, they're inevitable. Decoys and cyber effects flood the same networks at the same time, inventing phantom raids and forcing real defenders to make decisions they'd rather delay. It's like sending the world's worst calendar invite. No RSVP, just a meeting that is now. Minute 18. Russian integrated air defense starts to react. Some radars switch modes, others blink off to avoid being targeted. Sector controllers begin triage. Do they light up the long-range search sets and risk immediate attention, or keep them dark and risk blindness? Air defense is only integrated if the phones work and the picture makes sense. Jamming and cyber sandjam both. So if you're wondering whether this is a theory or a real problem for Moscow, here's why it keeps their planners up at night. Minute 25. The first blows land. A hardened sector operations center goes silent. No drama, just darkness. A long-range radar perched on the edge of the Arctic belt loses its generator to a shaped charge that doesn't care what the brochure promised. A fiber hub that linked 3 brigades to their air defense umbrella becomes an inert box with smoke seeping from the vents. Somewhere, a colonel stares at a screen that stopped updating 17 seconds ago and discovers that silence is louder than sirens. Minute 32. Fuel, war's bloodstream, takes a hit. High-capacity aviation fuel farms near forward operating fields bloom into pillars of heat. No fuel, no sorties. No sorties, no interdiction. No interdiction, no tempo. Fire services roll, but their radios fight for bandwidth with higher priority panic. On another frequency, a Russian mobile S-400 battery receives tasking data that is 30 seconds behind reality. 30 seconds is an eternity when the other side planned for it. Minute 40. The Russian picture fractures. Phantom tracks multiply in the east, while the real problems approach from the north. A battery commander must decide whether to move and risk exposure, or stay and risk encirclement by effects. He chooses to move, and a Brimstone makes it his last decision. Meanwhile, Typhoons ride tanker arcs, unpressed but unhurried, because time on station is a weapon. Voyager crews do the quiet heroics that never trend on social media, but win wars. Minute 47. The second wave rolls with different headings, altitudes and aim points. The RAF never repeats a solved equation. Another Storm Shadow package walks into a hardened command post that assumed it needed thick concrete, not a new roof. A communications relay that once passed orders to multiple brigades becomes a decorative radio tower. Deception pods paint mild chaos across the spectrum. Someone in a bunker shouts for an update and gets a sentence with 3 verbs and 0 nouns. Minute 55. What Russia calls an integrated air defense system is now an archipelago of frightened islands. The network that knit it together is gone. The forward aviation units are low on fuel and lower on coordination. Command posts that survived are out of the loop. The screens still glow, but they display yesterday's confidence. Aggression needs momentum. Momentum needs a brainstem. The hour took the brainstem. Why are Russia's air defenses more fragile than they look? Because thickness is not resilience. Moscow builds belts, long-range radars backed by long-reach missiles, layered with medium and short-range systems anchored by hardened nodes. The belt is deadly if it sees you, trusts its picture, and talks without interruption. The RAF doesn't argue with the belt. It argues with the belt's assumptions. First, blind the critical eyes or make them doubt what they see. Second, cut the conversations that make the missiles confident. Third, punish the logistics that keep batteries fueled, powered, and commanded. That's suppression and destruction of enemy air defenses in practice. Not a video game duel with launchers, but a systematic teardown of the system that makes launchers relevant. Here's a simple Doctrine duel. Russia tries to deny airspace with masked sensors and missiles. Britain tries to deny coherent information with synchronized effects. One is a wall, the other is a solvent. The boring superpower behind this fireworks, logistics, and tempo. Airpower isn't a montage. It's maintenance, fuel, and timing. Voyagers stretched the map, dispersed operating locations, spread aircraft and crews across hardened shelters in the UK and Northern Europe, complicating any attempt to ground the fleet with a single punch. A 400 MNC-17 moves spares, pods, and people faster than rumour. Weapon stocks are pre-positioned because the only time to discover you need more fuses is never. Weather turns foul? Fine. Storm Shadow and Paveway 4 were built to ignore drama. The RAF doesn't need blue skies. It needs repeatable processes. You can jam a data link, but you cannot jam British tea. It will find a way into every planning room, on time, every time. Modernization. The reason the second and third hours get worse for the other side. E7 Wedgetail closes the airborne early warning gap with a radar that treats low-flying threats like open books. Protector RG-1 adds persistent, high-altitude eyes with precision strike options and a loiter time that makes coffee nervous. Typhoon keeps growing new teeth, more capable electronic warfare, tighter integration with standoff weapons, smarter sensor fusion. F-35B evolves with software the way phones do, and the phone, in this case, can ruin a command post. Future cruise anti-ship weapon promises a longer, cleverer reach, agile, low observable, and optimizable for land or sea. And over the horizon sits the Global Combat Air Program, what you and I will keep calling Tempest with a grin, promising manned-unmanned teaming, collaborative weapons, and electronic effects that feel like science fiction until they are overhead. None of this is hype you buy at an airshow. It's the continuation of a simple trajectory. Faster kill chains, crueler to enemy networks, kinder to British crews. Doctrine faceoff. Politics meets physics. Russia's nuclear doctrine flirts with escalate to de-escalate, threatening rapid nuclear signaling if a conventional war sours. Britain's doctrine is the opposite of theatrical. Nuclear deterrence lives at sea, silent and survivable, while the RAF carries the conventional hammer that breaks miscalculation before panic becomes policy. The message is clear without being reckless. Don't count on holding command and control. Don't count on flying without fuel. Don't count on linking sensors to shooters for longer than it takes us to notice you tried. The nuclear backstop remains unchanged. The conventional response is deliberately fast, tightly targeted, and politically sustainable because it aims at the war machine, not the civilians trapped beneath it. Rhetorical question number 1 for any Russian planner. What do you do when the network that makes escalation meaningful is the first thing to go? The NATO multiplier. Imagine the exact 55-minute sequence you just heard. Then widen the frame. Norwegian F-35s watching the northern seam. German Patriots and Iris-T rings complicating Russian air options. US ISR assets painting the big picture from high and far. French missiles adding their own brand of precision pain. Swedish and Finnish sensors turning the Baltic into a glass table. And Polish air defenses making reckless moves unprofitable. The RAF is built to plug into that orchestra without a sound check. The effect isn't arithmetic, it's exponential. More eyes, more shooters, more jammers, more deception, more routes, more dilemmas for commanders who already ran out of certainties at minute 25. Rhetorical question 2. If one nation's fast hour is bad for you, what do you call the coalition version? Training breeds boredom on purpose. tanker pilots who knit refueling tracks in storms, intelligence analysts who can turn an electromagnetic whisper into a map, electronic warfare officers who read the spectrum like sheet music, F-35B crews who treat stealth not like magic, but like a tool with checklists and limits, Typhoon pilots who can execute a playbook with jazz band timing, on time, on target, no drama, ground crews who turn jets in weather that makes umbrellas cry. The culture matters. Its dry humor, ruthless competence, and the knowledge that the quiet parts of war decide the loud parts. The RAF is one of the few organizations where hurry up and wait means hurry up and pre-brief, pre-fuel, pre-position, and then wait with everything already perfect. Now, mirror what worked in that famous submarine arc and anchor this one in a real tension line. Recent years saw long-range Western missiles appear in a real war, and the reaction was instant.
Bunker-busting British stealth missiles have smashed through Russian air defences in what Ukraine has called a massive attack on Russian soils.
Threats, doctrine tweaks, and propaganda about wonder weapons that would make physics blush. Why such noise? Because standoff precision erodes the very things authoritarian militaries rely on: centralized control and the illusion of sanctuary. When depots deep behind the line erupt, and command posts that were supposed to be safe grow mysterious holes, staff officers learn the one lesson airpower loves to teach: nothing is safe when your enemy's kill chain is shorter than your decision cycle. Britain sits at the center of that lesson. Storm Shadow was not a press release, it was a demonstration. The RAF took notes, as did everyone else. Let's talk Russian air defenses again, but with the human factor turned up. An S-400 battery is lethal hardware, but it does not fight alone. It fights as a node in a system that must classify, prioritize, allocate, and authorize. Under pressure and deception, human operators become the bottleneck. Do they shoot at a probable target or hold for a confirmed one? Do they relocate and risk exposure or remain and risk suppression? Do they radiate and invite a storm shadow or go silent and invite a meteor? There are no good answers when the timeline is not yours. What does an air defense commander do when every screen lies, every radio stutters, and every rumor is 5 minutes behind? Zoom out to the political stakes. The Kremlin's strongest weapon is the threat of pain tomorrow. The RAF's strongest weapon is the delivery of paralysis today. That asymmetry is the heart of deterrence. Britain need not promise to level cities. It promises to level choices. It can make an offensive collapse before the speeches end. It can turn a day one into a day none by tearing the nervous system that holds divisions and wings together. If escalation threatens, the silent leg at sea keeps the ultimate answer far from reach and very precise in its effect. The certainty that any nuclear use would meet a reply no regime can survive. That's not bluster. That's the geometry of modern deterrence. Let's restart the clock, but this time imagine it with NATO's full chorus, because this is how a real crisis would feel. Minute 0. British, Norwegian, and American planners share a common picture. Minute 6. Multiple decoy corridors confuse different Russian belts in different ways. Minute 14. French standoff missiles kiss 2 logistics hubs goodnight, while RAF packages take the command posts. Minute 23. German Patriots swat the few launches that do make sense. Minute 31. Swedish and Finnish sensors on the Baltic Rim catch a mobile HQ trying to be clever. It is not clever enough. Minute 39. Polish interceptors push a line that forces Russia's remaining fighters to choose between fuel and fight. Minute 55. The same outcome, only faster, because more hands held the same map. No one has enough fuel to fight both physics and a coalition. None of this is to say war is easy, clean, or predictable. Friction is a universal law. Systems fail, weather lies, targets move, the other side gets a vote. But the logic of the hour stands. Synchronized effects applied to the right nodes force cascading failure. And cascading failure is the thing authoritarian states handle worst. They are built to look strong and be strong when the plan survives contact. They are brittle when they don't. The RAF's job is to make sure it doesn't. So what if the Kremlin miscalculates? What if a border incident, a cyber attack gone wrong, or a misread of Western resolve tempts a lunge? The answer is the same as the headline. The clock starts. The opening moves are not random. They are the practiced removal of essential capacities. The RAF doesn't aim for symbolism, it aims for function. When sector ops are dark, when fuel is burning, when mobile command posts are dead or deaf, when pilots are strapped in but the sortie matrix is nonsense, the offensive stops being a plan and starts being a memory. In that space, inside the first hour, politicians get choices back, diplomats get leverage back, and the side that thought it would dictate tempo discovers that speed is a British word now. All of this modernization exists for one reason: to make the opening hour so lopsided that the crisis never begins. Destroy Russia in this context means destroy Russia's ability to wage a major offensive in the theatre where it chose to pick a fight. It means no coherent orders reach the brigades that need them. It means no reliable picture reaches the batteries that want to shoot. It means no guaranteed fuel reaches the fighters who want to launch. It is the end of a war's nervous system, not the end of a nation. It's brutal to the tools of war and careful about everything else. That's why it's strategically and morally sustainable. We'll close where we began, but sharper. The same 55-minute clock that terrified strategists when submarines were the whole story now ticks in the sky. It starts with the RAF's ability to find, fix, and finish the nodes a war needs to think. It continues with logistics that turn minutes into hours and hours into outcomes. It accelerates with modernization that shortens kill chains and lengthens dilemmas. And it multiplies with allies who plug and play without a rehearsal. The Kremlin can threaten, posture, and rehearse speeches, but war runs on networks, and networks are what the RAF knows how to break. So let me leave you with the only question that matters in a crisis built on speed and control. If Britain can blind, bleed, and break the brainstem of your war in 55 minutes, how long do you really want that war to last?